Today I want to talk about yoga, and I also want to talk about this very special book. So this is the Archandipka. And this specific book is very dear to me because in our Soul Culture Yoga School, we are always talking about Sankhya yoga philosophy, health, wealth, especially this idea of Dharma, wisdom, purpose, right? We say Dharma, and really that means how to be spiritually rich. And of course, in the real world, we also want to make manifest business to serve our seva, our service mood, to serve community, to serve the world. And while we are all navigating different kinds of lineages, communities, teachers, and ideas of divinity itself, I think we can all agree that we are all souls. And what yoga has taught me so beautifully is that my soul has come here for a purpose, a unique purpose that I am uniquely qualified to do. I am both part and parcel of divinity and sometimes feeling separate from, which I will talk more about later. And that separateness is an important experience to have in context, but we are also always connected. So while everyone is saying we are all one, it is true, but it is also true that we are uniquely different. My lineage is Bhakti Yoga in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, so I am always aspiring and reaching towards serving the exact wisdom of the Vedas. Why? Because I didn't create it, because I don't believe or have I ever experienced the word of God, if you will, or the words of wisdom, the paramount crest jewel wisdom that is Veda. I've never seen, heard, or felt it be touched or translated better than the saints and sages in this Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. And I have seen, as a mentor and a teacher and a humble leader in various communities, that it is these exact words that all spiritual traditions, psychology, various kinds of healing are trying to touch. And so in that way, we are all together in it, not in a hierarchical way, but we're all together in it. So yoga includes this philosophy. It's very important. Bhakti yoga has something called Vipralamba, the mood of separation, and rag or raganuga, which means the coming together, the sweetness, right? If you and I are coming together, even like this, we are feeling that bliss of being together. That is the rag, or the sweet mood, the blissful taste of divinity, knowing itself, feeling itself, touching itself. Whereas missing each other so badly, even sometimes in the same room, is this unbelievably poignant feeling, and we call that the mood of separation, Vipralamba. Okay? So why am I saying this, and how does it come back to Archanadipka? So it is true that most teachers seem to want to bring positivity. Yes? And that some of us are more in the mood of, how do I say? We're in the mood of casting a light on the shadow, right? Makes sense. So we cast a light on the shadow to unearth the ick, the disease, right? The wound needs to be cleansed. And many teachers are coming and talking about fear, talking about pain. I do, because we experience it also. I mean, there's no bypassing discomfort in life. But there is also this kind of push over the past few years to make everything positive, that is somehow spiritual, that it's spiritual to only be happy. And that's not true. While it is true that our environment and politics is constantly showing us how tainted we are as conditioned souls, there is always still this through line of lineage that exists. And in Veda, we have the riches of this millennia process, hundreds of thousands of years of the same processes, depending and according to the Yuga Dharma of the era, meaning what time makes sense. Like deity worship may not make as much sense in this yuga or era as chanting, because we can break through the muck and the veil of ignorance with our words. But deity worship does make sense in other yugas the most, or animal sacrifice made sense at times where it doesn't make as much sense now. Meditation made more sense. And yet we still practice meditation. We still practice fire yogyas and sacrificing, whether it's our ignorance or sacrificing paper or sacrificing a fruit or a flower. We still do that, and we certainly still worship deities. And yet there are many religions that are against these practices. So Bhakti being about devotion and service, I personally love having a navigation tool, a system, right? The navigational tool for Bhakti is found in the saints and sages' songs and words. And we have books like Archana Diptika to illuminate, give us the light, the light, dweep, to practice the process of Bhakti Yoga, which will inherently give us an understanding of our soul, of who we are, of our own unique path. So the Vaidhi Bhakti is so important, the rules and regulations to follow, the understanding the mantras, to understand who we are in relationship to ourselves and to Guru and to teachers and to everyone on earth. The other book I brought out today, because I'm talking about our yoga teacher training, which is a multifaceted experience to both have a very powerful physical, mental, psychological, emotional healing process that we can then give to others all over the world. Yeah. This book, Jaiva Dharma by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, whose birthday it just was. The Titi was the other day. This book is much more about the true nature of the soul. How can we use logic as well as spirituality? How can we awaken our spiritual process? And what are the actual activities that God wishes to see us practice? So why am I bringing up these two books? Well, it is true that Bhakti itself, Bhakti Devi being the primordial personality of Bhakti Yoga, the crest jewel of the Vedas, that which comes after Dharma, Artha, Kam, and Moksha, purpose and wealth and desire and liberation have been understood. Bhakti is a blissful place to be because it's all the singing and the dancing and the food and the community, but there's also a powerful root anchored in the practices. And what I have found is that many people experience a personality who has been practicing bhakti down the road that has become quite dry, as we say. Dry because the world and all its negativity and it's all chaos and confusion, ultimately it's that way on purpose to confuse us and to remind us of who we are. A dry soul that needs to be watered is not going to be able to emotionally connect so well with someone. They're not going to see, hear, or feel pain. And it's not because senior Vaishnavas are bypassing pain. It's usually much more about a maturity and an understanding in their own practice, in their own bhajan, in their own spiritual sadhana. And so while I believe in the worship and the mantras and the practice, we must have that. We also must have sadhu sangha. We must have community. We must have relationship. There is no bhakti without relationship. There is no yoga without relationship. Yoga in itself means to yoke, to intersect, to come together. It's like we are puzzle pieces, and our whole life, our whole purpose is this svadhyaya, this self-study of our eternal nature, but with each other, right? With each other. So for me, the practice of understanding myself and my unwanted tendencies and my negative aspects in relationship to the world came about in a process called soul mapping. And this is a word, soul mapping matrix, that came to me after many, many years of practicing it and teaching it. And I saw that the self, the partner or the relationship, and then the collective, meaning like you might say Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva, or you might say the body, the mind, the spirit, you know, whatever you're going to call the Trinity, it always shows up in these three levels. I have myself to deal with. I have one other person, a cat, a dog, hopefully a human being I have to deal with in relationship. I have the collective. And it's truly in this informed process of recognizing those three unique, different tattvas or truths or relationships or balance points that we can embody the fullness of our soul's blueprint, which does necessarily include the earth, water, fire, air, ether, God in any form, which is to say power or Shakti outside of us and inside of us, however you deem God to be. And then the relationship we have to serving that. Not the same. How I serve myself and this body and this mind, which is fickle, and even how I serve my belief that I would like to gain momentum psychologically in my wisdom and even perhaps break through my ego, which is even more distinct, that is different from how I am going to serve God or serve divinity. This is where it gets really unique and interesting. Yoga teachers in the West have become like gym teachers or dance teachers, and that's okay. There's no problem with giving health. Health is part of Sankhya Yoga. Health is part of Ayurveda. Health is how we serve, how we live, how we sing, how we dance, how we express. But it's a gateway for what's actually coming. The breathing, the sweating, the power that comes from being on your mat as a yogi is what allows you to start to reveal your purpose. Now, what I mean by that is that you are in relationship to yourself and then you're in relationship to the world. And we are no longer in a time and an era. This Kali Yuga is an era like the Bronze Age or the Metal Age, right? This time, place, and circumstance on earth, I think most people who are spiritually practicing recognize that it isn't about being in the forest. That's not to say Vaishnav Dharma or the purpose of a Vaishnav ultimately is not to go into their spiritual practice and be alone with God as someone would do in the forest. Absolutely still true. You know, there are different levels to humanity. When we're young, we're a student, brahmachari, you might say. When we're married and we're working in the world and out in the world and connecting, your grihasta, your ashram is of family life. Then you start to separate and you start to think, I want to go to the forest, you know, maybe you're retired. And then eventually you might take on the sannyas world of a renunciant. So there's a place for that. But the Yuga Dharma is the purpose of the entirety of this era. And the entirety of this era is still to love and serve divinity in all its forms. And so I find that one of the fights that keeps happening in spiritual community, if I can say it like that, which is to say the spiritual community also you have with yourself, and let me know if I'm totally off here, is that we're often fighting a program about who God is and what God is doing. And we're fighting a program about the idea of religion as guru itself, as opposed to just seeing that guru is the embodiment of divinity coming to teach us the ways, right? And to practice the ways so that we can then remember who we are and not just be happy or distressed, but be balanced. Yoga as an asana, as a practice, as a gateway, as a somatic healing is to reveal and release programming. And it's to get strong so that we can be part of a relationship. And then for us to be balanced in the face of crazy and thus serve in society. Those three parts are interchangeable, interwoven, but also inseparable. They're inseparable. And so the reason Soul Mapping Matrix came about, and the reason Soul Culture Yoga School exists, and the reason I'm still married after 13 years, because it's not easy, although it's lovely, and the reason I'm still homeschooling 8 years in, and the reason this is one of the hardest ones, especially during an eclipse week or when there's a lot of drama happening. The reason I can call a few true communities my family, ones that have different ideologies, but are all inherently going for the same thing, is because I'm aware that my programming is there to constantly butt up against me and force me out of my, quote, happy place or bliss or distress, because they're both just part of a spectrum, whether I'm happy or I'm miserable, and reintegrate to balance, to find neutrality. It is from neutrality that I can serve my Dharma or my purpose as a healer, not as a teacher, not as a artist even, although those are all there, singer, musician, entertainer, if you will, but truly to serve as a mirror and a supporter of humanity. That's a healer. My job is to love you. My job is to love. And if I didn't have that practice to peel away at my root negative issues and anarthas through the dance or through yoga or through massage, I wouldn't even probably know, if it wasn't for yoga actually, that there was a psychic realm in the ether that I'm attaching to other people to. And I'm letting you know, in all honesty, that there are battles going on in the psychic realm all the time. All the time. And so many folks think, oh, I'm going to do a yoga teacher training and become a yoga teacher, and that's enough. The thing is, the mentorship aspect to going deeper is so that you can unlock blindness or illusion or avidya or ignorance that's living inside of you due to the time, place, and circumstance of where you were born. Because you were born into programming. You were born into misconceptions. And that's where we get deeper into gyan or wisdom. And we add into our bank account more knowledge, not just data. Not just like, oh, I'm hungry and I want to know, because anybody can do that. A narcissist could listen to class for hundreds of hours over a course of a week and still not come out and be able to integrate it and serve it in the world. So the idea of following a process of bhakti yoga, for example, is that beginning of surrender that connects you into a community, right? Sadhu Sangha is really important. Being in the community of other students or like-minded souls But then going into the process of chanting and remembering and retrieving your desire, and then saying no to that which is poisonous, and then eventually becoming attached again, then you create some ruchi, and you create this taste from your desire and greed for a higher consciousness. That becomes more steady, more steady. And then when the bumps come, you don't get thrown off so easily. That part is where some folks confuse it for coldness or detachment. But that detachment, that dryness, if you will, is very important for a sadhaka, for a practitioner to have, so that they don't fall off. When they go higher, hopefully they can come back into the sweetness and some level of emotional endurance or emotional maturity, and not, I guess, disregard the human in front of them. That is very unique to healers. That ability to both be dharmic or in your purpose, be steady, and say no to what's not favorable, and follow this process of bhakti until you're higher and higher. All you're going to get at the end is the same thing you started with. Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Hare Nam, Eva Kevalam, Kaloi Nasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva Gatira Nyata. There is nothing better than chanting this mantra and these holy names, because that is what connects you to God, to the names of God, Goddess in all these forms, in this Kali Yuga era, which is meant to mess with you. How would I know that? How do I know any of these Sanskrit verses? Because I sat and studied them. And then the world will come at me, and the world will come at you, and it will make you forget. What makes you forget? Anger, first and foremost. Disillusionment from lust, from greed, especially from envy. And if we don't recognize envy, if we don't recognize those little moments of like jealousy, because we were programmed not to see them, this is crazy, but it's true. That is your work in the world. That's part of it. That's just your shadow. It's just shadow work, which is not everything. But the shadow work is what you can get back to every time you go to your mat and feel your discomfort. Kid you not. The circle of life is so brilliant in regards to this bhakti yoga path. It is completely perfect. Bhakti Devi herself and bhakti. Humanity, not perfect. Managerial issues, imperfect. Organizations, imperfect. That's why my Sangha happens to be a little rebellious. My Sangha, my community, my people are not, I mean, you're my people too, but my teachers are all a little bit individualistic in that they know that organized societies usually fall apart. And here's my last sharing for you guys today. When I need help, when I am in pain, like the other day, this eclipse was so intense. I was so sick. Whether or not that was coming, from someone wishing me harm, which is like Delulu, right? Or it was coming from the storm that was happening, which may be science. On the spectrum between those two things, I doesn't really matter. I still need to have the medicine. I still need to have the ritual. I still need to find the second realm of soul mapping matrix. Second realm is to maintain, just to maintain. That's where my practices come in. That's where going back and serving something outside of myself is going to bring me back. The other day I was sick and I was listening to my Tridandi Maharaj, and he was talking about, well, many things, but specifically about Vamanadev. And long story short, I went into such a place of ecstasy, though I was in pain, that I've been to many times before, that it was like that moment of knowing, like, that's what medicine is. You have to take a little bit of poison to have a lot of effect, right? In homeopathy, we just take a tiny bit so that the body starts to reveal the understanding that it has the buddhi intelligence to heal itself. So a healer is meant to share wisdom that is unbroken so that you can remember how to heal and become whole, which is balance. It's not happiness. It's not being crazy blissed out, and it's not being miserable and crying and prostrating yourself to something that doesn't necessarily deserve your prostration. Surrender, saranagati, prostrating to your teacher, to the sastra, the wisdom, to the unbroken, unending truth of Veda. That's a great place to start. That's a place to bow. That's a place to reveal. And in our Sangha, friendship is very, very important. So I've been meditating on friendship, and I've been meditating on honesty, and I've been meditating on Jyotish, on astrology, the science of how that supports us, and generally on what sankalpa, or what vow I wish to take this year. And I've come to realize that me stepping up and answering the call to offer another 200-hour training is my seva, and that people need devotees in the form of yogis doing all the physical healing work so that they feel safe to remember that their philosophy, their wisdom, their gyan is theirs to live and experience in every single town and village in the world. I want to take a yoga class from someone who can teach me without opening their mouth, knows it. I want to teach from someone that can speak the whole thing in another language, although it's Sanskrit. That's the language of yoga, and I can understand it. I want someone to be able to walk in and see me and hold me and feel me with love, yet have some wisdom to share that is not some new age BS. I want to know that there's a story from the teacher that has brought them to where they are, but that they don't have to share their story with me while I'm on the mat, but that they can create a vibration and a frequency and a lila throughout the class, a little bit using their own story, but more importantly, sharing a lila of Radha and Krishna, or Nrsimhadev and Prahlad, or Vamana Maharaj, or any one of the many incarnations of Krishna, or Buddha, because that is Veda. That's the container of the philosophy. And I know very well, because I have worked in healing indigenous practices, plant medicine. That's all part of Ayurveda also. But I want to know that the channel is clear. I want to know that my teacher is practicing dhira, sobriety. I want to know that. I want to feel that. And so if they're a little dry and you're not feeling their like emotional, I don't know, like juice coming out, or they're not crying the whole time, that might just be them holding the container of the day. And if they are crying all day, that's just one class. What is the subtle energetic they are holding, the vibration, and what is the subtext of their stories, and what is the subject matter? What is their objective in that class? Is it to get you strong? Is it to get you in alignment? Is it to help you with your injuries? Is it to get you out of your mind, out of your stress? Is it to make you a better parent, to make you a better entrepreneur, to get you rich? All those things are good. I would love for every yoga class to basically not bypass the pain of this time, but also not to fully submit and bow down at the shadow. Just to touch upon and know it's there is enough. and then to really bring someone through and drive the class to an incredible experience of fullest capacity, health, wealth, freedom, and devotion, that would be a great soul culture yoga class. And that is exactly what I'm going to be bringing people through, heeding the call this January 2026. All that to say, thank you for asking questions. Thank you for being part of my tribe. Thank you for asking my team to do this. And I look forward to hearing more about the ways you're dealing with the shadow and yet not drying up and losing your devotion. That's my question. Peace. Radhe Radhe Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Radhe Radhe.